This week on Things Nobody Tells You, we are talking all about things like puberty and periods and the foundations of women's health. And I know that for many people, talking about these things didn't come naturally when we had to educate our own daughters, but also for us growing up. I mean, did your parents really have those in-depth conversations with you? I know that Mum, not to say anything bad about her, she was incredible, but you get the Where Do Babies Come From book and that's about it, and whatever else they throw at you in high school. So we are going to be unpacking all of this today, and through the lens of, I guess, helping our girls understand their bodies from a hormonal perspective and what that means for them as they navigate through life, you know, through fertility, pregnancy, perimenopause like me. Oh my gosh, are you there yet, Anna?
Not quite.
I've got Anna in here today. Now, Anna Maria is a doula. She's so many things, actually. She's a doula, she's a naturopath, she's a herbalist. She's got 4 girls. So if there's anyone I'm going to be asking about this, it's going to be you. And you have a beautiful space in Sydney called The Gathering Space. I'd love you to tell me a little bit about what happens at The Gathering Space.
Oh, yeah, thanks. The Gathering Space is a place for women who's going through the different rites of passages in our lives, basically. I am a co-founder with a dear friend of mine, Jennifer Hassey, who's a midwife. And we started The Gathering Space because both of us wanted to offer women more, a place to come and to learn and actually have community, a place for us to learn together as we're going through the different stages in our lives, but primarily pregnancy and birth and the postpartum. But we are also facilitating workshops that talk about the whole menstrual cycle and menarche, so the first period in a young girl's life, and the transitions, because it's all, of course, one big web that is tied together in a woman's life.
And do you know what I've learned from you previously? I mean, I mentioned you in an episode last week with Nadine from Shebirth, and I was talking about how we met. You were hosting, we have a mutual friend, and you were hosting a beautiful women's circle, but it was with corporate women in a high-rise building. We were all a mixed bag. We all walked in there, obviously high-pressure roles and jobs, and, you know, these women were often in HR, so they were talking, you know, about the responsibility they have with employing thousands, some of them, of people. And I thought, oh my gosh, how is this going to go? I was so taken back by just how needed it must have been, because I think it was within the first introduction, wasn't it, that there were almost tears.
Oh, yeah.
People were opening up and just saying how they wanted more. And I would love for you throughout the conversation today to talk to a little bit about that, because I think it relates to all of us, like you're saying, this big web of understanding our girls, but also the importance of us all coming together and being there for one another. So,
it's so big.
Oh, I'm going to pick your brains.
Go for it. I'm ready.
Now, big girl, you've got 4 girls. Eldest is 15. Then you've got a 10, then a
8. And 5.
Oh my gosh. So you are a pro, basically.
Well, thanks. I don't know. I'm really learning on the go, I have to say. I mean, as you do, you know, I don't think you're meant to know what you're doing. I think it's in being fully present with the kids and obviously doing your own work, which is what we're talking about today. And in that group we had together in the corporate setting, it all ties together. It's not separate. You can't separate how I think we parent and how we show up for our children from the role and how we are showing up in that role, because it is building on our experience in life and how we feel as women or as mothers as we went through the rite of passage of birth and pregnancy and that tender postpartum. That informs us of who we are as a woman and who we are for our children. So I don't think I know what I'm doing. I think I'm really curious and I really care, and I feel like it is such a gift to have 4 girls. And I also think that it is my responsibility to do the right thing.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
So I'm just here for the work. I'm here to do it the best I can.
And you're incredible. I mean, just the shift in the narrative, it comes from people like yourself, you know, that are so dedicated to education and sharing that, but also just offering the spaces for people to, you know, acknowledge what they truly need. And I know we were chatting before we got on the mic, so I'm going to hopefully revisit some of those things we were speaking about. But yeah, if I can talk to that corporate setting that we're in, you know, you had so many women coming into that room that in these jobs where it is, you know, praised upon for you to work 24/7, but then you're still expected to be a mum and have all of that mental load, which, you know, I'm learning isn't just about the number of things you have on your plate. No. It's the stages of each of those things, the decisions, you know, weighing up the options, all of these things. That is a huge burden on women. And I think what we don't recognise is that we don't have the ability to perform or work the same way at every single day throughout our cycle.
No, it's bonkers. You know?
So why are we expecting us, you know, why are we pushing ourselves so hard to almost burn out all these, you know, mental health challenges when actually we should just be acknowledging what we truly need?
Yes, we should be acknowledging it. The problem is we don't know. Majority of us don't know that we have a cyclical nature. We're not aware that that is a normal physiological thing that needs to be honored, and it has been honored in the past. But we have very much moved away from that into more of a structure where you should always be delightful and pretty and welcoming and always sharp in your brain. Yeah. And that is not easy for a woman to do because we have a different hormonal cyclical way every month.
Yes.
And we are meant to have these ebbs and flows, but that's inconvenient in a world where we're meant to show up every day with the same level of energy and delightfulness all the time. We don't. We simply do not have that. Our counterparts, the masculine way, has more of a linear hormonal cycle. They have more of a day cycle as opposed to a monthly cycle. So it works for them.
Yes.
And that's great. We want to work together, but we can't assume that we all fit into the same box. We have, though. That's what we're doing. We're putting ourselves into that box of saying, well, I'm just going to always have the same energy. And when I don't, I feel bad about it. I feel ashamed.
Yes.
I feel like I'm failing, you know, all of that. Yes. And that negative narrative just chips away at our energy levels and our self-worth, if you wish.
Yes.
But when we understand it, we can really use it for our greater good and for the power of the feminine way.
Yes.
And I think that's why, going back to that event where we met each other, why women open up so quickly is because there is something there that clicks and they go, that's me.
Yes.
I know exactly what Anna Maria is talking about. And it's emotional. Like it's really deeply emotional when we abandon ourselves throughout our lives trying to get a career and climbing the ladder and doing all the things.
Yeah.
Because there's also that part of us that want to do great things in life. That's great. Yes. And then there's another part of us that wants to have children, perhaps. And we have to marry all of that together in a world that is not very square box.
Yeah, it's not set up for that. It's not supportive. And I think you obviously, in your role as a doula, support many women through a significant shift. I spoke, you know, with Nadine last week about matrescence.
Yeah.
And do you find, I guess, that, a lot of women are only just discovering all of this stuff for the first time during that transition?
I mean, majority don't know that there is a cyclical nature. And look, most women have to learn about it the hard way when it comes to infertility.
Yes.
You know, and just wanting a baby and why is it not working?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, you have a cycle, and what's happened to that cycle the last 10 years, and were you on the pill for a really long time, just muting that whole system?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, most of us were.
And this is the thing, and you know how to trick it and pause it and do all of these altering things, and you kind of know there's 28 tablets or whatever it is.
Yes.
That's been a long time. But again, you don't realise how hard it is to fall pregnant until you're going through, you know, infertility potentially or trying to have a baby.
Yeah, and so that's, you know, a lot of women have a wake-up call then where they go, and, you know, I'm like, you have to check your fertile mucus. You have to see what the mucus is doing throughout the month. You need to time it and see what's happening and understand when you ovulate and when you bleed, etc. And what is happening there, because it is one of our most strongest vital signs for health when we have a menstrual cycle. It's going to tell us a lot about our health. And so I guess a large portion of women learn about it then, and then it's in the postpartum where we have all the neurological changes, hormonal changes, and we're like, who am I? Like, I don't recognize myself. I don't know where I belong in the world. I don't know how I feel about myself or the roles that I now have taken on as a mum. And maybe there's a part of us that want to return to work, and how do we, again, marry all of that together? And that's, again, where I think it is a huge opportunity to talk to women about what is actually happening in your brain and in your body, and honoring that transition so you can land on the other side and become a new woman, a new version of yourself.
Yes.
Arguably a much powerful, more powerful version.
Put more women in leadership positions, honestly. Like I say it over and over again. I mean, just that marrying of all of those things that you just spoke about. I mean,
Yeah.
We're
so diverse. We're
Yeah.
incredibly creative. We're so capable. I mean, the amount of things that any woman who's listening to this knows exactly what I mean when I say we always think 17 steps ahead.
Yep.
Whether you're a mum or not, women have this capacity to think about the community.
Yes.
What's our loved ones doing? How are they feeling? How did that thing go today for your partner? Or we're always just trickling away at how do we take care of everybody. That's estrogen. Estrogen is great.
Yes. Until you're going through perimenopause and it starts
she leaves you behind. She just said bye. Yeah, and so there is that shift, of course. It's a powerful shift. But we have this capacity, but the thing is we are too good, I would say, at leaving ourselves behind and not having ourselves part of that equation of caretaking and listening to and nurturing. And I think that's where it collapses a lot.
Yes. And is this obviously where historically the community would be there to support? And that's something that a lot of us don't have.
Yeah.
And I think going back to what you were saying before about, we first start learning about the cyclical nature during fertility struggles, perhaps, going back to high school. They just show you about different ways to protect and to not get pregnant, not, how hard it is. What would you hope then? And again, we haven't gone into the detail of talking about what this means. But, what would you hope? Do you hope that something would shift in that high school education, or do you think the community would come more together to help empower our girls from the get-go?
Yes, I feel like that's part of my mission in life. It doesn't feel like work to talk about these things. To me, it's my soul's mission.
Yeah.
But we have to change the narrative. We have to change the narrative from now you're going through puberty. That means you can make babies. So watch out and be careful and just be quiet about it.
Yeah.
That's really what's happening. And it's cringing. It's mortifying for these young girls and boys. It's just and it just makes them shut down.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear about it like that.
No.
But the other side of it is what we're doing as parents and as the aunties and uncles, I think as well. Like, it comes back to how we feel about the menstrual cycle. So what was it's a rite of passage. It's a rite of passage to become a young woman.
Yeah.
And so what happened at that rite of passage for us is going to direct and reflect into how we talk about it and how we talk about our bodies, our menstrual cycle. Is there shame? Is there awkwardness? Is there a bit of like, oh, this is, I don't want to talk about this. That's happening in the schools because the poor teachers are like, oh, I'm talking to a group of 25 people and they're all like trying to get out of it. And so it's all awkward. But what we have like as a duty is to teach the young people and women and boys and girls is how immensely powerful it is.
Yes.
It's something we should be so proud of because without it, we can't reproduce.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's the baseline. It's why we're here. So what I would hope is that we can slowly and steadily change the narrative from just a reproductive conversation and like, don't have sex at that time or whatever. And many of the girls and boys haven't had intimacy when they go through puberty. So just having that talk about now my body can do a thing with a thing that I've never really done. I mean, it's so far-fetched that they're meant to be comfortable in that conversation. So let's stop talking about it like that. Instead, I think we should talk about it as a rite of passage.
Yes.
Bringing in some of the older language around the transformation. You're becoming a man, you're becoming a young woman, and the honoring of that and holding these tender people as they're transforming to become really important people in the world so that what happens is that they can feel proud. They're informed about their bodies, and there is none of that shame.
Exactly.
Just hide the period. God forbid you bleed through your clothes, or God forbid you feel more tired and need a day off school.
Yes.
You should just, man up and carry on.
Yes.
That is detrimental to a young girl's mind because she's being told that she should suppress her feelings, not listen to her body, which is really unhealthy, by the way, and to just ignore it and be a little bit ashamed about the feelings that are coming up. And we gotta stop. And what has to happen for us, I think, as women, so us parents and aunties and grandmothers, is to have a really close look at how we feel about the menstrual cycle.
Yes.
Because what comes up, and I've just experienced it with my oldest daughter, who's gone through menarche, and I have, done the work and, looked at this for years and years and years, and I still had to face my demons when it came to my relationship to menarche, so my own menarche, the first bleed, and how I felt about it And it's a cellular memory. It's a cellular feeling we have about what happened back then. And we have to be so mindful and careful about what we're passing on. So I really had to take care of my feelings so that I could hold her in her transformation. And I'm happy to say that her feeling, and we did a ceremony for her and beautiful things, and she's so proud.
Wow.
She's just like, I am bleeding. It's amazing. I need a day off school. And I'm like, I hear you, sis.
Oh
this is great.
my gosh, I love it.
Yeah.
That would be the dream for me to get to that point, because my daughter is, we've got books and, the Yumi Stein's book and all of these things, quite practical conversations, and my kids are neurodivergent. So, sometimes you've got to be a little bit literal with some of them.
Yeah.
But I've made it a point to make it a conversation that is not hidden from the brothers and the sister, that it is everyone exposed to this information, and that there's no making fun or joking, that more it is, about what this means.
Yeah.
But I've got a lot of work to still do. So I'm hoping I'm going to take some of your advice today and pass it on.
Yeah.
But it's interesting what you say about your experience. I remember I was at a friend's house at a sleepover, and not a particularly close friend's house either. I think it was someone that, there was a bit of friction. They had an older sibling. I remember that. But it still sticks in my mind.
We don't forget. Or if we forget, that's a clue. If we're suppressing the memory, that tells you something.
Really?
You don't have to remember the event as such. I think it's great if you can, but it's the feeling. What did you feel about yourself in that vicinity of time? Because something happens. You're being informed about your body one way or the other.
Yes.
So it's a sensation. And imagine your scenario if it had, we call it healed sisterhood, if it had been a lovely auntie who could then hold you in that, or send you home and, give you a flower, or, I don't know, make a chocolate cake, or do something to honor you as opposed to you maybe feeling.
Quick, what do I use? Where do I put? Yeah. And another memory that comes to my mind is being at Australia's Wonderland when it was around. I don't know if you lived in Australia when we had this. It was a theme park and we were there on a school excursion, and sure enough, I bled all through my pants. It was such a heavy bleed, and I remember being so embarrassed that I had to tie something, and I've still got the photos of me with things tied around my waist, so I just had to deal with it. But again, those things stick in your mind because there's so much shame, and you've got to hide it, and how embarrassing. I couldn't tell anyone at the time. So I really hope that for my daughter it wouldn't be the same, that she would feel comfortable enough.
Well, just the fact that you're thinking about it and that you're talking about it is enough to change the trajectory of what you have been on. You're going to have a different conversation. You're going to try your very best, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to. There's no right way. I think there is just a way of openness and honesty and transparency and just vulnerability in it, and be like, oh, this is happening. How are you feeling?
Yes.
Or here's how I'm feeling. I imagine just like share the truth around it, as opposed to, well, given that you're not passing on the shame, I would say, right?
Yes.
But just the fact that you're thinking about it in a more open way is already going to be a huge difference.
And I think some people aren't comfortable, like you say, having those conversations because perhaps that's not something that they're familiar with. I know in our family, obviously, we talk a lot about our brains being different and all of these things. So it's quite natural for us. But I feel like some parents would find it quite challenging to know where to start. I mean, is this something that you buy books or open the conversation? I know my daughter, it's at bedtime. I always find the time to sit with her and draw. We draw together before bed, and that's where she opens up, and we can have these conversations where it doesn't feel like, oh, here's the book and I'm going to educate you. It's more a fun, lighthearted kind of moment.
Yeah, I think all of the above. There are many books that are lovely, but also I think I would go even further back and say, tying into how you feel about it, is that instead of changing your pad at home with a closed door, leave the door open.
Yes.
Let them see that you are bleeding.
I already do that.
Oh, great. Well, you're winning. Most don't do that. It's
really?
It's very behind a closed door and don't tell anybody. And then you could wear a special necklace or a bracelet when you're bleeding, so that indicates, well, that's mommy's special month, or like time of the month where I need more rest, or I need more chocolate cake, or whatever.
I love this.
According to their age and their, capacity to understand, you can just say that, once a month, mama needs more chocolate cake, and she will wear this special bracelet, and that is telling them about what's happening in your body. That means that there is never any shame in that, because they grow up knowing that, oh, that's just part of mommy's life, and that happens when women become young women.
I love that
for boys
idea.
and for girls. So none, like we need, like you're doing, there should be no difference.
No,
because it's not shameful.
It's not shameful, and I talk openly about it. Thankfully, yeah, like I'm at the later stage of life, and I have, this. We're sharing this. We're talking about women's health. I have an IUD, and you're probably like, Emmy, I don't know about that, but no shame,
no, definitely not.
But I always make a point of saying it out loud that. Yeah, mummy has her period and I'm feeling like this. But I didn't think about, doing something to signal that, because actually that would help with husbands and partners too. Having that visual cue. Mm-hmm. But is this something that would also show the cyclical nature of it as well, that they'll start to get into I love this.
Yeah, because then you're just feeding that, because you're living it.
Yeah.
So it takes the fact that we need to understand it, first of all, right? So it always comes back to us. It's not the kids. It's us that has to take responsibility for understanding what's actually happening. And many women at our age in life don't really understand what's happening in a month. I'm still educating women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Still learning.
Yeah. And then we have menopause and perimenopause, and that's, a whole different learning. So, it's, there's a lot to catch up on if we haven't learned it earlier on. But going back to living the cyclical nature so that our children understand, so that's a perfectly normal thing to do, and actually our responsibility to do, so that our teenagers are not just, drinking Red Bulls and coffee to suppress whatever fatigue that is coming in that, luteal phase, and helping them understand that there is room for more rest so that you can enjoy the peak when it's there as well, when it comes at ovulation. Giving them that power, but we have to live it. We have to show it. That's really, I think, the key. So as soon as you can, educate yourself about it, start to embody it and practice it to whatever way that feels right for you. And then that would be the foundation, so that then you can go into more details about the hormones, about the sexuality of it later on. But I don't think that's where we need to start.
Starting point.
It's too much.
Honestly, the stuff that I've been learning, and I think I was telling you about it when we met, I was doing a bit of research, ChatGPT as you do, going, tell me this, when am I going to be most productive in the month, and this. And then I started to understand what that cycle looked like, and it was a very clear pattern. Why am I waking up random time of night? But that will only happen during that period. When am I most productive? When am I able to tie up projects? When am I creative? There is absolutely a cyclical nature to all of that stuff. And if only I knew that many years ago, I wouldn't be so hard on myself. Yeah. I mean, for anyone that's listening that has absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, are you able to talk us through, I guess, what those phases look like, I guess, and the impact that it can have?
Yeah. So when I say cyclical nature, we have a monthly rhythm, I suppose, and it's somewhere between 28 and 30-something days, depending on the individuality. But if we stick to the stock standard 28 days, we have a cyclical nature of a follicular phase, which is where we are rising in energy. Our estrogen is rising gradually through the first 2 weeks of the follicular phase, the start of the bleed or of the month, and then it peaks at ovulation, which is where we feel radiant, and we often dress in ways that are a little bit more delightful, you could say, and we're ready to have meetings and do podcasts and things, because our brain is on and estrogen is peaking. It's great, and we're dropping an egg, and then once that happens, if it's not a fertilized egg, so if we're not becoming pregnant, there can be a momentary drop of sort of dread or like this collapse in the body. So there can be a moment which is just like a day or two where we just feel low down because we've just released this egg, and then we go into the sort of the second part of the month, which is where we're descending. We're going into the descend, and if there's not a pregnancy, then basically the body is shedding the endometrium and releasing what no longer serves for that month. And so that's where we feel often more tired, more needing to go inwards. We feel like the world is a bit more overwhelming, or we can have deep, dark emotional things that come up. And then we go into the bleeding phase, which is sort of the time to retrieve, rest more, eat more wholesome foods, nourish our bodies to sort of have that bleed in peace, which could be anywhere from 3 to 7 days for individual women. And then the cycle repeats. So we have this rise in energy and the peak, and then we go then through the release and the letting go and the go inwards, and so it goes. But the more you honor that cyclical nature, meaning that you that you actually give yourself time to rest, you will then have more energy probably at ovulation, because you've honored these. So it's not just like, oh, this is happening. It's it's living it. It's actually
Yes.
allowing yourself to re-emerge from having rested a little bit more when you were bleeding, then coming out and giving yourself a few days to just kind of like, set yourself into life again, and then you'll be full of creativity and energy, etc. So.
And it's something that, again, it's so hard to lean into as an adult because we are in sometimes, working environments where we can't honour that. We have to, perform at a certain rate 24/7. And, it was a few weeks ago, I was obviously coming down into that. My body just needed rest. And I force myself to go into the office when I know I have to work because I know that otherwise I'm going to get to that point and I'm going to need a 20-minute nap. And I remember I was working from home and I work with my husband, obviously, and he walked in, he goes, "Oh my God, what are you doing sleeping? Like, we've got 1,000,001 things to do." And I said, "I just need to do this right now for my body. Like, there is no way I'm going to be able to do what I need to do without honouring that." And
well done.
Geez, I wish I knew that a long time ago.
I know. And what did your husband, how did he respond to that?
Interesting. I still don't think he gets it 100%. No. Because again, this is what we're so used to, this toxic productivity, this kind of, 24/7 always on. But their experience is so different to ours. Yeah. I think unless you're living it or going through it, it's really hard to acknowledge. And I hope hopefully he'll listen to this episode. What do you think?
He might not have a choice.
I'll just have it blaring in the background.
So honey, let's go for a drive.
Yes, but I think it's important for dads, partners, anybody, even if you're not the one that's primarily educating your daughter or talking through it with them, just to be open to, learning about it yourself, because then it makes you feel a little bit more empathetic, I guess. Or patient, hopefully.
Yeah, all of that. And also men have a huge responsibility in this, because if a father can not be intimidated by the cycle that his young girl or his wife is experiencing, that's going to be a much more healed family, and in terms of just honoring that, she goes through this ups, and he doesn't have to understand it in detail if he doesn't want to, but a man will have such a different relationship, I think, to actually his masculinity if he can hold the feminine. If he can make room for his woman and his young girls to, honor her cyclical nature. This is not something we have to do alone. This is something that should be held by men and women.
Yes.
So this is not like the feminine versus the masculine. No. That's not what we're doing.
No.
It's all intertwined. And so I think men also have a responsibility to, I guess, be willing to hear it. But it's deeply rooted, I think, in also the masculine, that it's just like, women get a bit crazy.
Yeah.
The language around women's, changes throughout the month is not positive. It's very demeaning and degrading, I should say. And it, like, we're crazy, we're emotional. Oh, she's that time of the month, I can't talk to her about that. Or, oh no, there we go again.
No one would dare say that in my household.
I'm so glad.
Thankfully, there's a lot of feminine energy in my house. Even from my son, he's very gentle and soft. And even my husband, I think culturally, he's Indian. So I think those conversations just never happened in terms of the detail. So I think he would be very open to, learning and acknowledging that to some extent. But again, you're right. It's, what was their experience? And yes.
And if a boy was never shown that his mum had a cyclical life, then he has to learn from scratch, and because he doesn't have a bodily experience of that in the same way. So let's have compassion, but let's welcome them in for the conversation. Yeah. I send my husband podcasts to listen to, and he, I talk openly about it, so he hears the things.
Yes.
And, and it was so beautiful when my oldest went through her menarche, and when because she came into me in the morning and she's like, "Mom, at 3 a.m. I got my first blood." And we were like, "Oh my God, so special." And then that morning I went to him and said, "Hey, she got her period." And he was like, "Oh, that's so lovely." And then went to her and he's like, "Congratulations." Oh. And my whole body just melted, because I just thought, this is it. This is the chance, where the masculine can meet that feminine and say, "I see you." Yes. And this is special. And not just carry on and let's pretend that didn't happen.
It's
but just
game-changing. Every single shift in every little family, every little comment, conversation, then the other kids hearing that, this is the stuff that changes the narrative, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that this is the root of a lot of mental health stuff, body shame. Yep. And we live in a world that's very interesting. I think as mums now, we're navigating something that is foreign to us in terms of what our children are being exposed to, and we don't even know how. It's a minefield.
It's a minefield.
But I think we can shift this body shame that is happening by first of all showing it and living it, being proud of your body, not talking down about your body and its curves or how it behaves or the changes that we inevitably have to go through. Like, be mindful of how we're talking about that in front of them, and also being open to talk about it and be like, how are you feeling right now? You know, what's happening in your body and so on. And also and so I think it all ties into establishing, you know, a better mental health and body self-worth and all of that, which is like, it's going to dictate everything we do as women. Because if we feel ashamed of who we are and what our body does, which we can't really control that well, that's going to dictate how we show up in life and how you show up in the workplace and your creativity, and are you willing, you know. So if we can, you know, foster this, we're going to create very proud, strong, resilient young people.
And I think education's one thing, because obviously social media, you know, there's two sides of it. There's a lot of education out there. Some of it's not necessarily evidence-based or informed from the right person, but there is a lot of information. But unless we are going to have that other side of it, that, you know, honouring and recognising and relating that back to how we navigate through life, then there isn't going to be a change, because you're just going to be fed this information and you're going to be even more overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I always think about this, you know, our girls, obviously, you know, social media, all of these videos. We know that girls are going into Sephora and getting makeup from a young age. I mean, don't even want to talk about endocrine disruptors and all of that.
Yeah.
But they're absorbing all of this content. They're wanting to look a certain way. You know, it's important for them to know your stomach is not going to be the same, you know, throughout the month. I mean, sometimes, and I've got all sorts of things. I've had polycystic ovaries and gluten, all the, you know, lots of layers of stuff. And I've had to recognise, you know, at what times and just not feel bad or ashamed or trying to, you know, hide it and act like it's not there. I mean, we should be proud of our body and what it's doing sometimes. Or not sometimes, all the time.
And shoulda, woulda, coulda. You know, I think we also have to have compassion for where all this comes from. You know, like this, it's hard to turn this big ship around and the narrative. And we have the feelings we have and they come from somewhere. But I think it starts with honoring that. And as we can learn with our teenagers, we can learn together. And maybe when we look ourselves in the mirror and we have the little round belly as we're getting into sort of the bleeding phase of the cycle, we can talk about it and maybe catch our own thoughts and be like, oh, my body is doing a really amazing thing right now. It's actually cleansing myself. It's healing the vaginal tissues. Like, there's a lot of stem cells in that blood that is healing and restoring for our vaginal health. It's a superpower. And so just that little moment could have been, you know, instead of going from, oh, here we go again and I look this way, or I can't wear that dress, or, you know. We could go, oh, actually, I'm doing a really cool thing right now.
I love it.
And if your teenager happens to walk past, be like, hey, guess what's happening?
Yes, exactly.
If they're willing to
and
hear.
even that, like how you were just explaining it as well, those little moments, those little nuggets that you can give to your girls so that they understand. Because I think once you understand, that's when you can give yourself more self-compassion, I guess.
And it's and in my experience, you know, it's small steps. So I think, you know, it's a lot to come to terms with the fact that maybe, and most of us probably did, have a version of a shameful menarche. And so that can be enough to sit with for a while and be like, oh, that we can grieve that and we can sit with that for a bit, and then take the next step and go, okay, what do I want to do now as an auntie or as a mum? Or a teacher, you know, how do you want to, what's the next best step to do? So don't feel like you have to be this healed version of a menstrual, you know, expert. I think it's okay to just start with the curiosity, have compassion for what happened, and then start to look at the words that you're telling yourself, first of all, and then also the narrative that you're putting into the world. You know, when my teenager got her blood, our neighbor's daughter came in, and she's probably 11, I think. And my younger kids were like, oh, Kiva got her blood and it's so exciting. And it was a bit real part. Like, it was very exciting for us. And the next door neighbor came in and she was like, oh, you're excited about it? I was going to say, I'm so sorry.
Interesting.
And I was watching this in my kitchen and I was like, don't say anything. And then my younger ones were like, why would you be sad about that? It is so cool. I can't wait. And I thought, great, I've done that right. But then I just thought, oh my goodness, like that was evidence in front of my eyes about how her story is, about what's coming for her. And I just thought, that's tough. That's really tough, because
that's tough to wear that throughout your life.
It is.
Because it's such a significant change, a shift, a moment and celebration, like you were saying in your house.
Yeah.
What are some of the key things, I guess, sort of leading up to that point? Because obviously everyone's at a different age and a different stage. I love how your youngest, they're already there as champions, so they obviously are having the education from a very young age, but it's never too late, I guess.
Definitely not.
Leading up to that point, where would you start if I've got someone listening going, oh gosh, this feels like a big topic?
It's a big topic, yeah. Look, there are first moon circles that you can take if you have a young daughter, so from about 8, and I facilitate those as well at the gathering space, where that could be a thing where you don't have to do it. Like if you're battling with your own stuff and learning about your own body, you don't have to take full responsibility. You can be, gentle with yourself, but there are many beautiful women out here in the world that are facilitating small workshops for young women, young girls, that do it in a very age-appropriate way about talking about all of the things that we've talked about and the cyclical nature and some of the hormones. I mean, it's a bit complex, I think, for an 8-year-old to hear, but there are ways to talk about it. So there is that, and then there is...
So they come before, at any age, from 8 and up?
Yeah.
Oh, I've already got a group of girls I can bring along.
Oh, please do. It's so special. And so we sit down in a circle and we, and there's like a visual of what it looks like on a month. So we have the winter season when we're bleeding. Then we have the spring that's coming. And then we have full summer at ovulation. And then we have the autumn and then into winter again. So there are ways to talk about it that's less confronting.
Yeah.
And it's not about that, it's not the story of, oh, be careful, you can fall pregnant. It's the story of what's happening. How are you feeling?
Yes.
What's going to happen then? And then it's very much about like, what could you imagine? What's the difference in cravings you have in summer versus winter? Do you feel like having soups and stews at home in winter? Do you feel like having ice creams in summer? Like just bringing them into that flow of, oh, well, it's a little bit like what's happening around us in nature.
Yes.
And then there is this beautiful opportunity for the mums to come in and give their daughters a blessing and give them a rose.
I'm so coming. I love it.
It's very sweet. And so at the same time, as the young girls are being taught, the mums can also be taught about the intricacies and in more adult language. And so that's, I think, could be something, well, in my experience, it's very much that it just takes the pressure off women having to have it all together. And because it's taken years for me to understand it deeply, but also to just sit with my own personal experience. Yeah. Because if I sat here with menstrual shame, it would taint the conversation.
Yes.
I would be like, oh, here, oh my God, I'm about to bleed, whatever, any day now. But for me, it's like, oh, I'm going to change my schedule a little bit and make sure I only do what really matters, and everything else is going to fall away. And so allow yourself to be gentle with this process and learn it slowly. But that is a place that I offer to facilitate that as well. But and then there is the books, and then there is, the things you do at home if you're ready to leave the door open and don't hide the pads as much and all of that.
Just keep it an open conversation.
Yeah.
I do want to talk a little bit about the nutritional cravings, all of these things, because, it's really hard. You've got kids that are going through a big significant shift. There is also for parents shame around foods and what's good and bad. And, and actually that was another episode I just did last week, was around feeding kids and that terminology where there is no good or bad foods.
Yes.
But talking a little bit about how do we listen to our body and see what it needs to nourish and help us through those stages.
Yeah, I love that. Gosh, it's a big one. But what I would say is like the thing of I think as women, watching the narrative of good and bad and like my body is big or small or that's wrong or right, that's a big one, because we do it unconsciously in the kitchen when we're feeding our children.
For sure.
And also there is this thing of like, finish your food, or like they haven't eaten, and we are so hypervigilant, which is a deep instinct we have to feed our kids and we want them to be well. That's where that comes from. But our relationship to food is gonna ripple into how we're talking about it. So that's a big one. But I would say that just like I just said there, like we have the winter phase where we often have sugar cravings and want more chocolate and want probably more warming, nurturing foods, and we want more food. And that can sometimes be like, oh no, I'm going to gain weight, or it's bad, or like here I am going again with my cravings. The more we suppress them, the more we're going to have them.
Yes.
Because that's how the brain works.
Yeah.
We can't have it, we'll want it. But we do want to feed certain parts of our cycle, meaning when we are ovulating, it's a really good idea to give the body good fats, so natural fats, nuts and seeds, avocado, lots of olive oil, coconut oil, ghee and fish and all the things, right? So allowing the body to get those natural fats that has the cholesterol that actually is what hormones are made from. So we do need to feed that cyclical nature. And sort of in between ovulation and bleeding, we have a little bit more wiggle room in terms of like probably not eating as many calories. But then when we come into the bleeding, there is this need for more calories again because we're shedding the lining of our uterus. Like, it's a big deal. It's not a lot more. It's not like we need 100 more calories. It's a little bit goes a long way.
Right.
But we're so restrictive in our nature, I think, generally speaking. And
you have your idea of what you can have, and that not that there's any flexibility in that, and there absolutely needs to be. You can't just say I'm going to have 100 grams of this, and that's all that I'm going to have.
Well, you're not a machine. You're not a robot. Like you're going to have different cravings. And I would say, in my experience, when we sort of open the door for this concept of like going a little bit with our own flow, literally, then we can have less of the cravings because we're no longer fighting ourselves so much. So it's not that I can't have the chocolate, or I shouldn't eat so much at dinner or whatever. When we go, well, I'm about to bleed. I need more nourishment. I'm going to give that to myself. Yeah. And then that whole battle goes up and it's gone. Gone. There's no more pressure.
Yes.
This can take time to build that healthy relationship with food, but it all ties in together, as you can probably see, that it's once we honor that, there is a cycle. Most women are not aware that there is a cycle that is dictating the hormone. We're just a big bag of hormones that is just being played with accordingly to the day of the month. Yeah. And so when we realize that, we can go, that's what's happening.
Exactly.
I'm going to give myself a little bit more of the chicken stew.
Yes, exactly. I know. I even know for myself this week, I wanted my chicken soup. I'd had it in the freezer, frozen, and I needed it. I needed the nourishment. And as I said, I'm learning a lot now myself and recognizing that. And I really do hope that these young girls do that for themselves, as they go through teenage years, which are tricky enough as it is.
It's tricky, one, because the media and like just how it's ingrained in us now have a standard of what a beautiful woman is, and that standard is probably like a 16 to 20-year-old woman. That's the standard of beauty. And that's a very small time in a woman's life. So that's our reference point to what is the right woman. That's problematic. But what's happening, of course, as you might remember as a teenager, is that we change. Our hips change, our breasts change, everything is changing, and we're like, what's happening here? Yeah. And that can be a little bit shocking to sort of welcome that, depending on what mental conversations you're having with yourself as a young woman. But if we are fostering that, then that's where this body shame happens, and then we feel ashamed every time we gain a few kilos around bleeding, which is 1 or 2 kilos. We gain that, both which can body fluids, etc. But that goes away again. So we do ebb and flow, and for the girls to know that would be really helpful, and that's going to reduce that fear of restriction. Yes. Or not fear of, but starting restricting ourselves with food and instead relying on caffeinated drinks, which is happening a lot out there, and sugars. Because as a teenager is evolving, her dopamine receptors in the brain are also changing because she's being informed about who she is in the world as she's transforming. So she's hypervigilant about what other people in the community, what her classmates, what do they think and feel about her? How are they responding to her? And so she's hypersensitive. That's evolution. She's trying to find her group, her tribe. Yeah. So that's part of it. And if she's being told that she's getting too big or too curvy or whatever, then she's going to start restricting herself, and she's going to rely probably on more of the dopamine-rich food, which is the sugars and the caffeine. Yes. And it's so available in the world. So it's a pretty big deal.
I was pretty shocked, actually. I've had a few times, I've had play dates or things where kids have either asked for a soft drink or a kombucha. A lot of them drink kombucha. Yeah. I've even seen kindy parties. I was like, oh my gosh, my kids just get water. They must think I'm a mean mum. Although my eldest daughter discovered red drink, which, oh my gosh, it was the worst thing I ever did was let her have one, and she was off the tree. Oh my God. And I thought, see? And I told her, do you know how you feel? How you feel a bit silly and a bit, that is how powerful those ingredients can be and how they can make you feel.
That's the best way to teach them, I think.
They need, it's like the kids that are so restricted with food. They're the ones that are hovering over the table at birthday parties, just
Correct.
gorging on everything. And I think, I always said to Mike, if they ate too many sweets, I would just be like, how do you feel right now? Does you feel sick in the stomach? Yeah, that's probably why.
Yeah. I mean, and that is just it's a lived experience.
Yeah.
Great way to teach them without the shame.
Yeah.
Right? See, I told you that's maybe
no.
not the way to go. I'm not saying you did that, but more just, well, that's
How does it
probably
make you feel? Yeah.
what's happening in your body right now. And that starts that self-inquiry. And I definitely see that in my kids. They're like, oh, I know if I have a lot of that, whatever, like a classic, cake, birthday cake with all the colors in it. And icing, I mean, they notice that their stomach feels different and then their mood is different. And and that's great. Just make good choices, which is hard enough when you're a teenager, etc. But that's where it begins.
Yes.
It's trial and error is really great. But to just get fed that sort of wisdom and insight along the way in a caring and inquisitive way, I think is really going to be a beneficial way to do it.
It does. And that makes me think about your work as a doula then. So all of these things that we're doing now with our young girls, I mean, so much of that then plays out later in life when they're going through fertility struggles or they're going through pregnancy and birth. I know I've spoken with a doula who Lauren, on a recent episode, and it was really about what shows up in the birthing suite.
Yeah.
How the shame or the things that we've suppressed or how we respond to pain and all of those things. So we don't recognise, I guess, the importance of these earlier conversations.
Well, it starts at menarche. I mean, ultimately it starts at birth. There are these rites of passages, and every time we go through a rite of passage, which is birth, our first sexual experience, menarche, and birthing babies or projects in the world, and then there is menopause, of course, and then there's aging and death. Those are the major sort of points of rites of passages. And each rite of passage feeds onto the next. So how we are born and how we're received into life, into the world, informs us about, are we safe? Are we loved? Are we wanted, right? That feeds into then the experience of menarche. If we don't feel wanted and safe, then we're probably going to be very shy about our bodies as it's changing in menarche. And if something happens at a rite of passage, that's going to inform that woman or person about who they are and how they're accepted in their community. So every time we go through a rite of passage, we're learning something about who we are in the world. So in a tragic version of that, it would be a traumatic birth, traumatic, shameful menarche, and then that's going to show up when we're in the birthing space because we haven't probably reconciled the power of our body and honored ourselves and welcomed ourselves to be fully expressive of the experience that is very primal of giving birth.
Yes.
And, the bodily fluids that's coming out and the bleeding in the postpartum and feeling the things we're going to feel. So if we haven't learned at the previous rites of passages that we are loved and safe and that it's okay to be who we are, it's going to probably show up in the birth space. So I do think it's important to talk about in the pregnancy, ideally before, but talk about how was your rites of passages. We don't have to go in deeply into, you don't have to do it all in pregnancy. That's not necessarily a great thing to do, but I think it is, and I experience it, incredibly powerful to take time to think back about, and I have a whole process I do with the women I care for in their pregnancy where we go through the rites of passages, what has showed up in their life, and every time they have these aha moments where they go, oh, now I understand.
Yes.
And for a woman who's becoming a mother to have that moment of go, oh, I'm not actually a bad person or I shouldn't be ashamed of myself, then she can show up with more reverence in the birth space. And it's not, about like achieving the perfection or anything like that. It's more just, I guess, entering every rite of passage with more self-love and compassion.
Yes, more self-love and compassion. And, if you haven't had a great experience, like you say, doing the work and healing that part, I mean, where would they go? How would they do this? Is it, again, a gathering space? Is it maybe just talking to someone if it's manifested into mental health? I mean...
Yeah, I think you can talking is great. Yeah. But who you're talking with needs to be able to have an understanding. Yeah. And also have space to hold that conversation because it's not about fixing. No. So
which a lot of therapists sometimes, it's a very different approach.
Diagnosis focused. Yeah. Which is definitely appropriate in some instances. This is not black or white really, but it never is it?
There's a lot of, I always talk about this big grey that we navigate.
We're in the grey.
We're all in the grey.
I think life is in the grey.
It is.
Especially womanhood. But I mean, I'm certified as a shamanic woman crafts practitioner. So a lot of how I hold space for that comes from that. And what that is to understanding all of the cyclical natures and understanding nature and how nature plays into how our health unfolds. But it's also about not fixing, and holding space is a word for it, but it's about midwifing a woman. So the midwifery process is about inquiry and guiding the woman through self-inquiry and just holding that. So we're not guiding a woman to be like, so was that good or bad? Or like, what do you know, how are you going to do that better? It's about, okay, so then what happened? How did that show up for you? What were your behaviors when that happened? So that the woman is doing it for herself, but she's doing it in a facilitated way that is structured and feels safe, and that there is no right or wrong. This is the thing. I think we're so quick to kind of go, well, this is the right way, and this is, now I'm great.
Yes.
It's really hard to, I mean, I don't really know what that looks like, but I think it's the inquiry into it and starting to be brave enough to open up your mind and go, what did I feel back then?
Yeah.
What happened in my life when I went through menarche? What was happening in my house? What was my dad doing? What was my mom doing? Were they present? Were they not present? What were my aunties doing? What did my friends say or siblings say? All of that is going to play into how you're formed into the world. And so that's a process I offer at the gathering space, and it's also done online where it's a 2-hour, it's a big undertaking, but it's powerful because it's not diagnostic. It's really inquiry based, and it also very focused on, okay, so what are your next steps? So no one is telling her what's right. It's more about what feels like the right next step for you to do now that you have this information, and how are you going to do, if we're talking about birth, like how are you going to take this into the birth space? And for me, quite honestly, as a birth doula, to know this with a woman and know her story and hearing her reflections is going to help me in how I show up for her, of course, you know, because then I can remind her, be like, remember how you just want to know that you're actually safe? Can I just remind you that you're in a safe space right now? Or whatever it is that she's used in terms of words, right? But often it's that we're good enough, we're loved, and you're safe.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that keeps being repeated. Yeah, I know.
Imagine if I had you in the birthing suite. I say this to Nadine all the time. I'm like, I needed people like you.
More
Because
babies.
how beautiful to have that, have someone there just guiding you and holding that. And I think that approach, just that holding space and those inquiries, would work across so many different parts of our life.
It's all of them. I am just so hyper-focused on birth. Probably when I go through menopause, it's going to change.
But I'm thinking even diagnostic with neurodiversity and all the rest. And I had a mum say to me at the party the other day, she's going through diagnosis with her child. I obviously have my kids. And then she came up to me and she says, now I know why you let me do that on my own. And I said, look, I could tell you everything and guide you and point you there, but yes, you do need to go through that process. And I always know at what stage of the grieving process, but how much information is too much information, when they really need to be guided in the right way, or where they actually just need to go through and discover parts for themselves. And I think that's, it's very important to navigate that journey without being told you're doing this or that, or have to be. I think it's the key, because we are so capable when we're allowed the time and space to process it in ways that works for us. Like you say, we all have such different brains. There is no right brain. Like it's okay to do it in our way. And just because one person has discovered one thing doesn't mean that anyone else has to catch up to that. It's okay. Right for them. It's not unlike parenting styles. It's the same thing. You can't stick yourself in a box.
I know. This is the right way. It's ridiculous. I think once you're in it, you're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. We all have to do it in our own way. But what we can do is to be there, like carefully listening to the sisters in our lives, the women that are going through diagnoses and exploring our brains and rites of passages, etc. We can take on that sisterhood, if you want to call it that, where we are maybe asking a subtle question like, hey, how does that feel for you as you're going through that? And what's happening? Like, how, do you want to talk about it? And have the invitation, and then holding ourselves back from diagnosing or saying, well, here's what I did, or here's what you should. More just, do you want advice, or do you need some? Is there something missing? Can I do something for you? When we're just offering, then women are very good at when they're ready, taking what they need. And that is actually the right way. We don't have to diagnose or funnel people down a certain path.
Fix. We're always wanting to fix. The most significant shift in my journey of everything I've gone through with my kids and my own mental health and being undiagnosed with ADHD at the time, was a woman that pulled me up and she said, but how are you doing? Are you doing okay? And I broke down in tears outside a dance school, and I was so embarrassed at the time, and I still now, every time I run into her, I tell her, thank you so much, because you were the one that made me actually stop and reflect and go, actually, I don't think I am okay.
Yeah.
And it just takes that sometimes, yes.
It's the community which we used to have.
Yeah.
There used to be this sisterhood of thinking about each other. And now we're doing so much in isolation. And so I think what we could do, and maybe this can be a reminder for all of us, like send that text message or voice note to a friend that you have that is going through something, whether that is having a teenager or, or anything where you can be like, hey, how are you going in all of this? Because we forget ourselves. We forget to check in.
I'm terrible. I'm useless at staying in contact. Anyone will know they have to message me a few times for me to answer.
Oh, fair enough.
But I love that. A simple little voice note when it pops into your head. You don't have to think too much.
Hey, I thought about you. How is that for you? And that's also okay. Like, we are bombarded with so much, but it could be that outside the dance studio, and just don't hold back.
Hold back.
Just send out the invitation for a conversation. And you don't have to be like, oh, well, I don't know what to say if she says she's not okay. Or what if she starts crying? What am I going to do? Just be there.
Be there.
Just give her a hug.
It's hard.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Because it's rare that we share with a friend or anyone and we are expecting them to fix the problem.
Yeah.
We want to just get it off our hearts, be heard and seen, which is why circle work works so well. Like where we met each other, women open up very quickly because it's like, oh, I'm here to just be seen in who I am. And you can't do it wrong. You just cannot do it wrong.
No.
So I think it's a good reminder, just be there for each other and see each other's rites of passages. And if we're mothers, checking in and be like, hey, how's motherhood for you at the moment?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it can really change how the brain chemistry is working from just like cortisol to like softness and pause.
Just shows you the power of all of these things. And I just love how we've managed to go full circle. Yes. Just throughout this conversation.
Another circle.
Journey. Another circle. It's all about the circles and community. Honestly, I'm always learning so much from you. I feel like we could go on for days.
Honestly, it's a never-ending conversation.
We could have a follow-up at some point to really dive deep. But I think that for anyone out there that is not even near it yet, but just even to start the process of, thinking about what happened for them and their experience in the lead up to navigating it with their child. And it's never too late to rethink or re-educate or
No, I mean, you could do this when you're 80.
Yeah.
And it's going to be powerful because you're always going to have another rite of passage. If you have a beating heart, you're still having another rite of passage. So if you're 80 and you're going, oh, I have never thought about any of these things, giving yourself the last bit of your life to honor your life, you're going to probably have a very different rite of passage, which is death. Wow. And that is just as important as birth. Where we begin.
I think we need death doulas here. I mean, I'm Dutch. I'm pretty sure they have them in Holland. But you're right.
It's definitely growing. And I'm quietly thinking about how can I venture down that path, because death is another thing that's
very intrigued. Yeah, I think there's a huge thing that can be done there. Again, it's the hiding and the, oh gosh, and we can't talk about it, but actually we should honour that whole complete cycle.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And also that ties, death and aging is kind of like, I guess, lumped together in a way where, because we're afraid of aging and we're avoiding it at all costs and we're doing all the things we can to avoid aging. Yeah. And that ties into then, the invisibility of aging and it starts at menopause, of course, where we're just like, oh my God, what's happening to my body? And I'm changing and everything's changing. And then there's this like, well, it's the decline, right? And it's the language around it. And then when you are an aging woman or in that sort of crone phase, or even the Maga, which is sort of the autumn season of our life, in that menopause season, that's, if we're honoring and taking time to kind of harness our wisdom and our life story and all that, we can probably arrive at that death altar in a different way, where we have done what we needed to do in our life. So that's a long way to say that it's never too late. No,
it's never too
late. Honor
your
life. My goodness, it's so precious.
Yes, it sure is. Well, thank you, Anna Maria. I know you're off to doing your beautiful space, the gathering space now.
Yeah, we have a mothers group every Thursday, and so pregnant women and new mums can come in, and we have guest speakers who come every now and then we just hold a real space for them to talk about what's happening in their life. Yeah.
Well, we need more of them everywhere. Spread, go as far as you
can. Working on it, sister. Working on it.
Oh gosh, I know. know, you can never do too much, but your mission is just so crystal clear and so important. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge today. And I think what we might do is actually I'll pull together some resources just to help visualize or map out exactly as you've explained for anyone that's listening and might want to have a visual representation of what that means. So
yeah, I can definitely help you with that.
Awesome. Well, lovely chatting, and hopefully we'll get you back in again soon.
I would love to. I could talk about this any day with you.
Oh,
so special.
You.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.